What's up, y'all? BK back here with another paddle review. In this one, we're going to be reviewing what is one of my favorite power paddles of 2025. It's probably one of my top 3 paddles that I've tested so far this year, from a brand that I've actually not enjoyed playing with a lot until this paddle. So without further ado, in this video, we're going to be reviewing the new Gearbox GX2 Power. Let's do it. Now, Gearbox paddles have a very unique feel. They have had paddles in the past where I've just not enjoyed playing with them because the feel of the paddle was just so different and something that I just didn't feel comfortable playing with on the court. However, they have modified their technology a little bit with the new GX2 Power, and I feel they finally nailed down their SST core and figured out how to optimize the performance of the paddle for those top tier pickleball players, and the GX2 Power is a paddle that I thoroughly enjoyed playing with. This is a fantastic power paddle in 2025. I think a ton of people are going to really like how this paddle feels and how it plays in that power style of game. So let's dive right into the specifications. This paddle comes in at $280, but you can use the code BKPB at gearboxsports.com to get yourself 10% off of this paddle. So if you would like to get your hands on the new GX2 Power, use the code BKPB at gearboxsports.com. Now, the GX2 Power comes in 2 different shapes. I'll leave the specifications of both those shapes up on the screen for you to check out. So if you'd like to see the stats of the paddle, pause the video right here so you can check out the stats on the screen. The 2 shapes that Gearbox have gone with is the elongated shape and the hybrid shape. This seems to be a common theme among most paddle companies now making top tier paddles, is they're sticking to these 2 really popular shapes, the elongated for that more tennis style of game, and the hybrid or wide body standard shape that most players that come straight into pickleball seem to enjoy. Now, the hybrid shapes of Gearboxes in the past just weren't wide enough, and a lot of people just did not like how that paddle played because the paddle didn't really have that wide face that people enjoy playing with, giving you a much better sweet spot. However, with the new GX2 Power, the hybrid shape is a more true hybrid shape with that wider surface area and a shorter total length on the paddle. Now, where this paddle stands out is the core of the paddle. The core is that SST core that Gearbox is now famous for, with that carbon rib inside the paddle surrounded by foam, now with an EVA foam edge wall that's going to give you that enhanced pop that you're looking for in this power paddle. The carbon rib core is something that's unique to Gearbox. They have these layers of carbon fiber going down the face of the paddle, creating ribs inside the paddle filled with that expanding foam that we're used to seeing on a lot of other paddles, but on the edge wall. Gearbox has put in these carbon ribs inside the paddle to enhance the durability of the paddle, so we'll see how long this paddle holds up, but in theory this core will hold up a lot longer than those polypropylene honeycomb cores that we're used to seeing on the market up until this point. Now, the face of the paddle is a 3K weave, so a bidirectional weave on the face, so it's not those T700 carbon fiber faces that we're used to seeing on most other premium performance paddles. This is a 3K bidirectional weave on the face of the Gearbox GX2 Power. So let's dive into what this paddle does well, what it doesn't, who would suit, and why you should try and get your hands on the new GX2 Power from Gearbox. Now, diving into the performance of this paddle, let's start with the feel of the paddle. This is where Gearbox paddles are really unique, is in their on-ball feel. The feel of this paddle is extremely soft and a little bit muted, so you don't have that loud pop that you hear from other paddles like the Yolas and the Selkirk Boomstick. This paddle has a very quiet sound to it on contact with the ball, and it also has a very plush feeling with a very high dwell time on this paddle. This is where this paddle truly stands out compared to most of the other power paddles on the market, is the on-ball feel is very plush, very quiet, and has an extremely high dwell time because the ball really sits on the paddle face with that patented SST core that they've used in this paddle. So if you are someone that enjoys playing with power paddles but don't like the big sounding paddles like the Selkirk Boomstick and want a more plush, high dwell time feel on the ball, the GX2 Power paddle is probably the best paddle that you can choose for a top quality power paddle that has a very high dwell time and a very plush feel on the ball. Now this paddle does have a little bit of a break-in period, but it's not as big as those polypropylene honeycomb paddles that we're used to, like the Yola Pro 4. The Yola Pro 4 has a very long break-in period, whereas the Gearbox GX2 Power does have a little bit of a break-in period compared to the foam paddles like the Carbon True Foams and the Selkirk Boomstick that have almost no break-in period whatsoever. This paddle will take a few days of playing with it to really get that final finished product where you have that enhanced pop and enhanced power coming from this paddle face. What you'll also have is as this paddle breaks in, the feeling on the ball gets more plush and there is more dwell time on the paddle the more you use it. So once you break this paddle in, the paddle will have that higher dwell time and that enhanced pop and power that you're looking for. So when you do pick up this paddle, make sure to give it a few days of use before you expect that big time result in terms of the pop and the high dwell time that we've come to expect from this paddle. Now talking about the pure pop and power of this paddle, it is top tier. The hardest hitting paddles that I've tested so far this year have been the Selkirk Labs Boomstick and the Yola Pro 4 once broken in. The Gearbox GX2 Power stands toe to toe with both those paddles in terms of the pop and power, and in fact, after break-in, this paddle probably surpasses the Yola Pro 4 in terms of power and stands up there as the king of power with the Selkirk Labs Boomstick. Both these paddles are probably the two hardest hitting paddles on the market right now that are fully USAPA approved and PBCOR approved. So if you are looking for the highest pop and power that you could possibly get from a legal paddle in today's market, the Gearbox GX2 Power is probably the best option for you along with the Selkirk Labs Boomstick. What I really enjoyed about this paddle was that my serves and my third shot drives felt absolutely phenomenal. These are probably the two shots that I really had the best time hitting. It really does show you how much of a true power paddle this really is. So if you are someone that likes to play a very power style of game, more of that banger pickleball with that tennis style of game where you're hitting heavy serves and heavy drives from the baseline and want that enhanced pop at the kitchen for your counters and putaways, this paddle is an excellent choice when it comes to the power game. Now where I also enjoyed playing with this paddle was the extra spin that this paddle has because of that bidirectional 3K carbon fiber weave that they have on the face of the paddle, but really the spin generation of this paddle comes from that extremely high dwell time. When making contact with the ball, you can almost feel the ball sit on the paddle face and sink into the paddle before launching out. So what you can really do with this paddle is shape the ball at an extremely high rate. If you really allow the ball to sit on the paddle face for that long, you can really grab onto the ball and add that enhanced spin that you're seeing in the Gearbox GX2 Power. Now because the spin generation primarily comes from the high dwell time on this paddle, my slices didn't feel as good on the returns as it does with some of those high grit surfaces that we're used to from something like the Selkirk Labs Boomstick, where they have that surface grit with the Infinigrit that really just spins the ball on contact versus using the high dwell time to add that enhanced spin rate. However, on drives and topspin drops, especially some of those flicks where the ball has a chance to sit on the paddle face for longer, the GX2 Power has way more spin on those shots where you really allow the ball to sit on the paddle face than those shots where the ball comes off the paddle face fairly quickly. Now where this paddle struggles is the control game. This paddle is fairly hard to control because of that extra pop and power that we're getting from the Gearbox GX2 Power. So even though it has a very high dwell time, it is unpredictable at times to tell how quickly that ball is going to come off the paddle face because it really sinks into the paddle and launches off on contact. So if you are someone that likes to play a very control style of game where you're hitting a ton of drops, resets, and dinks, this paddle is going to be a little hard to control for that style of game. So if you are someone that likes to play a very control-friendly style of game, I would stay away from the GX2 Power. It is very hard to control on some of those reset shots where you just don't get the feeling of being able to control the ball on the touch shots because the ball really sinks into the paddle and launches off. That launch is a little hard to predict on control shots where the margin of error has to be very, very small. Now, this paddle is a top-tier premium paddle designed for a very advanced style of game. So for anybody under that 4.0 level, I would stay away from the GX2 Power until you've really mastered the control of the pickleball and the paddle. This is a very hard paddle to control, so this paddle is designed more for an advanced style of game. But if you are a 4.0, 4.5 plus player looking for a top tier power paddle that has a very high dwell time and a much quieter sound off the paddle, then the GX2 Power is probably the best paddle that you can get your hands on for that style of game. Now, just talking about the two shapes in particular, if you are someone that likes to play a very power style of game from the baseline with big serves, big drives, a very tennis style of game, I would go with the elongated shape. That's the shape that I've really enjoyed playing with. It's something that's going to allow you to really accentuate that tennis style of game. However, if you are someone that likes to play a very kitchen heavy style of game where you're going to drop and reset, get to the kitchen, and then be aggressive at the kitchen, then I would suggest a hybrid shape because that enhanced sweet spot is going to allow you to control the ball a lot better on your drops and resets. Plus, the bigger face at the kitchen is going to allow you to hit really good counters and speed ups, giving you that extra bit of control with the enhanced sweet spot from that wider face shape. As I mentioned, this paddle does come in at $280, but you can use the code BKPB at gearboxsports.com and get 10% off of this paddle, bringing the price down to about $250. At that price point, this paddle is really good value for money. It stands toe-to-toe with the Yola Pro 4s and is cheaper than the Selkirk Labs Boomstick. And those are the two paddles that I would most closely compare this paddle to. Now, if you're enjoying the content, make sure to subscribe below to BK Pickleball. It really helps us support the channel a lot. Also follow me at BK_Pickleball on Instagram. I put out a lot of great short form content on there as well. Comment below what other paddles you'd like to see me review. Like the video, share the video, do all the fun things. And until next time, I'll see you later.